Hey, my name is Frederick and I'm one of the co-founders of ChinaImportGirl.com, and in this video I will explain the importing process in 6 steps. So we begin with creating a product specification, and I will guide you step by step from creating a spec sheet to researching regulations, sourcing suppliers, sample orders, all the way down to quality inspection, lab testing and a delivered product. Now, a few words about this tutorial. This video, or the procedure I will explain in this video, is not really exclusive to any specific category. It can be applied broadly to every consumer product. So if you're in, say, electronics or children's products or something else, it doesn't really matter. The procedure is roughly the same, okay? And that goes both for custom designed or private label products. Now, when it comes to manufacturing countries, I know we're called ChinaImportGirl.com. That's our main, that's our main manufacturing country. But this procedure can be applied anywhere in Asia, be it Vietnam, India, Cambodia, Bangladesh, or any other manufacturing country. Now, budget. How much money do you need to actually launch a product? I would say around 5,000. Like, that's the bare minimum. Timeline. How much time does it take to execute the procedure I will explain in this video? On average, 4 to 8 months. That's roughly what it takes. Okay, few words about me. This is a less flattering photo from a couple of years back, 2016 I think. I was walking around in Shanghai, where I used to be based at the time, and I'm, as I mentioned in the beginning, one of the co-founders of ChinaImportGirl.com, born in Sweden and living in Shanghai, where we used to have the main office until earlier this year. Now we're based in Hong Kong, but my background is in product development and quality assurance. Now today, as I mentioned, we're based in Hong Kong, or more specifically in Sheung Wan. It's a ridiculously crowded area, pretty close to Central if you've ever been to Hong Kong. And what we do is that we help customers, or we help startups, launch products, and we do that through our online platform. And if you want to know more about how we can help you get off the ground and launch a product, you can go to ChinaImportGirl.com/call and book a free consultation today. But now it's time to get started. So step one out of 6. The very first thing you got to do is to create a product specification. And a product specification is any file or any piece of information that defines the product design, quality, functionality, and dimensions. Okay? So that could be a design drawing, a bill of materials, size chart, label files, a material sample, anything that defines a product, okay? Because the way it works when you manufacture products in Asia is that suppliers make products according to specification, okay? So you get what you specify, right? Now, before you do anything, you gotta work on the specification. So this could, as I just mentioned, include design drawings, logo and label files, bill of materials. That's essentially a component list listing all the different components and the respective materials, treatments, colors, yeah, everything, and a material specification. Okay, so that's the very foundation, and I will refer to the spec sheet or the product specification throughout this entire process. Now, once you have a specification, you're not really at the stage where you can reach out to suppliers. Before you can do that and actually start the process, you need to understand product compliance. Now, product compliance is the practice of making a product comply with all the regulations that apply to this specific product in your country. Okay? Now, for example, in the United States, there are various regulations that apply to, say, children's products or electronics or furniture or fabrics, okay, or even kitchen products, anything that's in contact with food or beverage. And the same thing goes for the European Union, for Australia, for Singapore, for most developed countries out there. Well, pretty much every developed country out there. There are regulations that apply, okay, and these regulations, they could cover safety standards, okay. They can cover electrical safety, chemicals, heavy metals, labeling, documentation, third-party lab testing. Okay, different requirements apply to different products in different countries. Okay, so even though electronics, for example, just use electronics as an example, are regulated both in the EU and the United States, the regulations in the EU and the US are very different, meaning you need different documentation, different standards, and different labeling. Okay, now how do you make a product compliant? The very first step is to understand which regulations apply to your product. That's number one. Okay, now once you understand this, the next step is to create the label files, create the documentation, and submit products for lab testing. I will get back to that at the end of this procedure. Now, the stakes are pretty high when it comes to compliance. You only have one chance to get this right. Now, say that you're importing children's products and you import them to the United States and they don't have the right CPSIA tracking label. That's pretty serious. The customs authorities, they can destroy the products, and of course you get no compensation for this. Or if you plan to sell on Amazon, it's the same thing. Even though they are not a government agency, they are pretty strict with verifying that the products listed on Amazon are actually compliant. Okay, and compliance is more than just having a test report. You need the right labeling, the right documentation. Okay, you only got one chance to get it right. Now let's recap. Product compliance includes the following: product safety standards, chemicals and heavy metals restrictions, labeling requirements, documentation requirements, and lab testing requirements. Okay, now this is a pretty good example, this photo on the left here. Now here we have a country of origin label, made in China. That's mandatory in the United States. We also have a CE mark, that's for the European Union. This one too, this is a warning label. This is a European Union EN71 warning label, and this is for the United States. So you see here different compliance marks and different labels, and these are all legal requirements. Of course, this is specific for children's products, but there are different labeling requirements that apply to pretty much every single product. Okay, now at this stage you should have a spec sheet, you should have a very good understanding for the regulations that apply to your products in your country, and it's only now that you should reach out to suppliers. Okay, now the only two supplier directories that, at least in my opinion, really matter is Alibaba, Global Sources. I think combined these are pretty much 98% of the market. Okay, now these directories are big, like they have combined a few million suppliers listed on them, at least in the hundreds of thousands. Okay, so you have to learn how to filter suppliers. Now the good thing about these directories, in addition to the fact that they have a lot of suppliers, is that they provide very extensive verified information about these suppliers, and this verified information is information you can use to make an accurate supply selection. Okay, now say that you go to Alibaba.com, you type in organic t-shirts. Okay, organic cotton t-shirts. Now what you should look for specifically is suppliers specialized in manufacturing, well, in that case, organic cotton textiles. Alright, so the product scope is number one, because every supplier is specialized. It's not like those like Disney style Santa Claus factories making a bit of everything. Reality is not like that. So product scope is number one. You should also look for test reports. Do they have like uploaded REACH or CA Prop 65 or maybe CPSIA test reports that helps you understand if they can comply with regulations in your country. Quality management certifications such as ISO gives you an idea if they have at least some sort of basic quality management system in place. And once you made this assessment and you repeat this on say 100, 200 suppliers, you should be able to boil this down to a short list of maybe 10, 15 or 20 suppliers. Now you can contact these suppliers directly on the platform. Okay, so both Alibaba and Global Sources, they have messaging systems, and you can request a quotation or submit an RFQ request, meaning that you request prices and you submit your product specification. Because without your specification, without the bill of materials and design drawings and so on, well, they have nothing to base the quote on. Okay, now once you receive the quote file, which normally takes somewhere between 5 to 10 days, you should look at the pricing, the MOQ, and of course the product specifications. They have to reconfirm the materials and so on, because otherwise you don't really know what the quotation is based on. Alright, let's recap. What should you look for? Number 1, product scope. Number 2, compliance track record. Number 3, registered capital. I didn't mention that, forgot about that. Number 4, quality management certification. Social compliance audits that like BSCI and SEDEX, a very good benchmark to find some of the very, very best suppliers. And down here we have pricing and MOQ. The reason I don't put pricing at the top is because I want you to understand that a price is only relevant if it's provided by a qualified supplier. Okay, so you don't go out and request quotation from 100 suppliers and then make an assessment if the supplier is qualified. No, it's the other way around. First you make a supplier assessment. Okay, I got 15 pretty decent suppliers. Then you request prices. Okay. And the same thing goes for the MOQ. Some suppliers may set an MOQ at 300 pieces, some at 3,000 pieces. So that's another thing you have to take into consideration when you select a supplier, especially if you're starting off from nothing. Okay, step 4 out of 6, product samples. Now, the point, why do you buy a product sample? You buy a product sample because you need to see the product in reality before you commit to a larger order. And of course, you have to test if your supplier can actually make your product. You can't take that for granted. Now, on average, the fail rate is somewhere between 25 to 50%, okay, depending on the industry. And when I say fail rate, that means that out of 10 suppliers, then 3 to 5 of those suppliers will fail to make good product samples, okay? And for that reason, my recommendation is that you buy samples from at least 3 to 4 suppliers, okay? Because that way, when a few of them fail, you still have a few supplier options to go with. Otherwise, you have to restart the entire process. Now, placing the sample order is very straightforward. Just wire the money. You can either use, say, the Alibaba Trade Assurance payment platform. Oh, sorry about that. Or you can use PayPal or just a wire transfer. Okay. Now, on average, I would say that you're looking at somewhere between 20 to 40 days for a first sample revision. Now, the thing is that when a supplier is making product samples, it's rarely perfect on the first try. Most suppliers, they have to at least remake the sample once or twice before everything comes out the way it's supposed to. Okay? Now, in some cases, you will be facing a situation when the supplier just can't get it right, okay? They've been trying, say, 3, 4, 5 times and just can't get it right. There are various reasons for this. Maybe they just don't have the technical capability to make a product according to your specification, and if that turns out to be the case, then okay, mission accomplished. You tested them and they failed, then at least you didn't wire $10,000-$20,000. So cut your losses and move on to the next supplier. That's the only recommendation I can give. Now, I think many of you are worried about the prospect of suppliers stealing your design or brand name, and even though I would say that the risk of that is fairly slim, at least when it comes to a supplier you're working with, there are ways that at least you should consider to register a trademark and perhaps in some cases also get design protection. Now, just keep in mind that you can't get a design patent or a utility patent or any other form of design protection for a product that's already out there. For example, you can't get a t-shirt patent. You can't patent the t-shirt. You can't patent an office chair because these products already exist. So unless you build a time machine and go back in time, your only option is a trademark. The trademark doesn't cover design or functionality, but at least it covers your brand name and your logo, like the graphics. Alright, let's recap. You should order samples from at least 3 or 4 suppliers. Reconfirm all the specifications before they get started, because once they start to make the sample, they can't go back. And if you want them to, if you want to change something like halfway through, then they have to restart the process. So make sure everything is confirmed on both ends before they start production. Now, as mentioned, expect at least a few sample revisions, and samples are rarely 100% perfect. There are both technical and economic limitations when it comes to prototypes. So just be aware that product samples are rarely 100%. It's just the way it is. Okay, so step 5 out of 6. Almost at the end now. Now at this stage it's time to wire the money, or well, specifically to sign a sales contract and then wire the money. That makes actually a really big difference. Now, the reason you need a sales contract is because you need to reconfirm all the product specifications once and for all. Okay? So once again we get back to the product specification. It keeps coming back throughout this entire process. Okay? So the product specification ultimately becomes an attachment to the sales contract. That's the way it works. Okay? Now the sales contract should also specify the definition of a defective product, shipping terms, packaging terms, production time, IP ownership terms, to basically tell the supplier that, okay, don't put our product photos on Alibaba or global sources, and payment terms. So the point is that you have this framework, you have this sales contract that you can refer to in the future when you keep placing follow-up orders. You want to avoid a situation where you have to reconfirm the shipping terms, the packaging terms, the payment terms, and blah 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 terms for every single order. That's a waste of time, and also increases risk of misunderstandings, which in turn is also what causes most quality issues. So the sales contract, it really ties everything up. It's a very important part of the process. Now, once you got a sales contract in place, that's when you wire the money. That's when you wire the 30% deposit, but not before that. Now, production time, the production starts as soon as the supplier receives the money, and you're looking at everything from 40 to 60 days. That's a pretty average production time. Now, as you're waiting, you can book quality inspection and lab testing, and that can be done online through, say, Southeast Limited or Asia Inspection. And they cover not just China, but also Vietnam, India, Thailand, and so on. Now, the reason... Okay, let's not go too fast now. Now, once the products are completed, that's when you need to get the goods quality checked. And the reason why you need a quality inspection is that there's no way you can actually return products back to a supplier in Asia. It doesn't work like that. You can't get your money back. Once you wire the remaining funds, once the goods are shipped, be it by air or sea, it doesn't matter. You can't return those items back to China or Vietnam or India. It's not going to happen. So the reason why you need a quality check is to verify that your product is, well, the way it's supposed to be in terms of design, in terms of measurements, in terms of materials, in terms of everything that makes your product the way it's supposed to be. Okay? So you don't actually have to execute it. You don't have to go to Shenzhen or Saigon on your own. Instead, you can work with a company like us, and we can send out an inspection agent to the factory. The inspection agent will, equipped with measurement tape and a camera, basically execute a visual inspection looking for scratches and visual cosmetic defects, also function testing, anything we need to do. So this way you can be pretty sure that, okay, the product looks the way it's supposed to, or if we find defects or other quality issues, we will report that to you the next working day. So that's why you need a quality check. Now, lab testing is different. Now, when it comes to testing compliance, say verifying if a material, say a piece of plastic or a fabric, is compliant with, say, a chemical regulation, then the only way to do that is by taking a piece, taking a unit, submitting this to a third-party compliance testing company, and they will then do a material analysis to verify if the product is compliant, and they will issue a test report that you can then show to the authorities in your country to prove that this product is compliant. And the thing is that lab testing is actually not mandatory for most products. It's actually something you can decide on for yourself. However, keep in mind that the customs authorities, they have the right to request a test report if they want to, or any other form of any other government agency or market surveillance authority. Even if lab testing in itself is not always mandatory, they do have the right to request compliance documents if they want. So for that reason, I strongly recommend that you always get your product lab tested when importing product from Asia. And the same thing goes if you plan to sell products on Amazon. They're even stricter than the government authorities, because they're very strict when it comes to requesting compliance documents and verifying that you have the right test reports and other documentation that you need before you can even list a product. So for that reason, I recommend that you get your product lab tested. Now, lab testing can, as I already mentioned, be booked on the internet. You don't actually have to go to Asia yourself and deal with this on the ground. You can go to, say, sofeast.com or asiainspection.com and book quality inspections and lab testing online. Now, when it comes to costs, quality inspections tend to be fixed price, about 300 USD, 300, 350. Okay, and the price is pretty much the same if it's in China, Vietnam, or India. When it comes to lab testing, it depends on the number of materials, the number of regulations, number of variations, and that could be colors and platings and so on. Okay, I would say that on average for material testing, our customers spend about 500 to 600. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Now let's recap. So before you wire the money, you need to prepare a sales contract draft. Don't expect your supplier to provide not even a template. They don't have that. So you need to prepare an agreement draft. Once that's sorted, that's when you wire the 30%. Once the products are completed and well everything is ready to be packed, that's when you book a quality inspection. Lab testing is, as I mentioned, strongly recommended, at least for the very first order, and only once quality and compliance are verified, that's when you wire the remaining 70%. Once you have wired the remaining 70%, that's it. Then the supplier doesn't really have any incentive to remake or repair defective or non-compliant product. So you have to withhold this payment until both quality and compliance are verified. And of course make your supplier understand this, which should be very, very clear in the sales contract. Now, assuming everything is A-OK, you can go to a website or, well, a freight booking platform, more specifically like Freightos.com or Flexport. Okay, so if you want to learn more about how we can help you launch a product, go to chinaimportal.com/call and book a free consultation, and I will get back to you within 1 working day.